For 40 years, she was just the quiet librarian, until one night the whole town discovered the legendary voice she'd been hiding all along. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss, Mrs. Ellaner Wilson had lived in the small town of Meadowbrook for over 40 years. At 78, she was a familiar face around town, the sweet old lady who volunteered at the library on Tuesdays, fed the ducks at the park every morning, and occasionally sang softly to herself while shopping at the local grocery store. Her husband had passed away 5 years ago, and her children lived in different states, visiting only on holidays. Most days, Ellaner lived a quiet, unremarkable life that seemed invisible to the younger generations of Meadowbrook. The annual Meadowbrook Community Talent Show was the biggest event of the summer. What had started as a small fundraiser for the local high school had grown into a town-wide tradition, complete with cash prizes, local celebrity judges, and even coverage from the regional news station. Young performers practiced for months. Local bands competed for the spotlight, and this year the grand prize was $5,000 and a chance to perform at the state fair. Behind the scenes, the show was organized by David Thompson, the high school music teacher, and a committee of enthusiastic parent volunteers. They'd been working for months to make this year's show bigger and better than ever. The auditorium had been decorated with twinkling lights and colorful banners, and tickets had sold out weeks in advance. In the production office behind the stage, 3 of the show's young production assistants, Zach, Brittany, and Jason, were going through the list of performers for the evening. "Did you see this?" Zach laughed, pointing to an entry form. "Old Mrs. Wilson signed up to sing. Can you imagine?" Brittany leaned over his shoulder. "The library lady? No way. She's got to be like 100 years old." "This has to be a mistake," Jason said, scrolling through the digital application. "Maybe her grandkids signed her up as a joke?" "We should totally let her perform," Zach suggested, with a mischievous grin. "It would be hilarious. Remember when Mr. Peterson tried to do magic tricks last year? This would be even funnier." The 3 exchanged looks, and Brittany shrugged. "David did say we need a variety of acts, and technically, she did fill out all the paperwork correctly. Let's put her near the end, right before the really good acts," Jason suggested. "Maximum contrast for maximum entertainment." None of them noticed David Thompson standing in the doorway, frowning as he overheard their conversation. He wanted to intervene, but part of him was curious about the elderly woman who had quietly submitted an application to sing. The night of the talent show arrived. The auditorium was packed with excited townsfolk. Backstage, performers of all ages were warming up, adjusting costumes and battling nerves. Ellaner Wilson sat alone on a folding chair in the corner, dressed in a simple blue dress that she'd worn to her grandson's graduation 3 years ago. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched a worn leather purse. She looked out of place among the teenagers with their instruments and the dance groups in their sparkly costumes. Zach approached her with a clipboard, barely concealing his amusement. "Mrs. Wilson, you're on in 10 minutes after the break. Are you, ready?" Ellaner nodded and smiled kindly. "Yes, dear. Thank you for checking on me. Do you need anything? Water? Walker?" He snickered at his own joke. "I'm quite all right, thank you," she replied with quiet dignity. David Thompson watched this exchange from across the room and approached after Zach walked away. "Mrs. Wilson? I'm David, the show organizer. I just wanted to make sure you're comfortable. Are you sure you want to go through with this? The audience can be quite energetic." Ellaner's eyes sparkled with something David couldn't quite identify. "I've been ready for this for a very long time, Mr. Thompson." The first half of the talent show proceeded as expected. Dance routines from the local studio, a teenage rock band covering popular hits, a surprisingly good juggling act, and a mediocre stand-up comedian. The audience was engaged but restless, waiting for the truly spectacular acts that traditionally closed the show. After the intermission, David stepped onto the stage. Next up, we have Mrs. Eleanor Wilson, who will be singing for us tonight. The audience clapped politely as Eleanor made her way slowly to center stage. Zach, Brittany, and Jason positioned themselves at the side of the auditorium, phones ready, to capture what they assumed would be an embarrassing moment. A few teenagers in the audience exchanged knowing looks, expecting a train wreck. Ellaner stood before the microphone, looking small and fragile under the harsh stage lights. The music began. The opening notes of Amazing Grace, a safe, expected choice for someone of her generation. But when Ellaner opened her mouth to sing, time seemed to stand still. Her voice emerged, rich, powerful, and hauntingly beautiful. The vibrato that came with age only added depth and emotion to her perfect pitch. Her voice filled every corner of the auditorium, soaring through the melody with the skill of a trained professional. The audience sat in stunned silence. David's jaw dropped as he watched from the wings. Halfway through the song, Ellaner transitioned seamlessly into an operatic aria, Puccini's O mio babbino caro, revealing a classically trained soprano voice that could rival any professional singer. Phones throughout the audience lifted to record the unexpected performance. Tears streamed down faces. No one moved, no one whispered. They simply listened, in awe as this unassuming elderly woman commanded the stage with a presence that belied her years. As the final note hung in the air, there was a moment of absolute silence. Then, as if a dam had broken, the audience erupted in thunderous applause. People rose to their feet in a spontaneous standing ovation that continued for several minutes. Some wiped tears from their eyes. Others shouted, "Bravo!" from the back of the auditorium. Eleanor stood humbly, a small smile playing at her lips as she nodded her thanks to the audience. David rushed to the stage with the microphone. "Mrs. Wilson, that was incredible. I think I speak for everyone when I say we. Had no idea you could sing like that. Would you mind telling us a little about yourself?" Eleanor took the microphone with a steady hand. "Well, many years ago, before I moved to Meadowbrook, I was a professional opera singer. I performed with the Metropolitan Opera in New York for 15 years. A murmur of astonishment rippled through the crowd. But I gave it up when I met my husband and we decided to start a family. I haven't performed on stage since I was 32 years old. When I saw the flyer for the talent show, I thought, why not? Sometimes we need to remember who we used to be." In the back of the auditorium, an older gentleman stood up. "I thought it was you, Ellaner Blackwood. I saw you as Mimi in La Boheme in 1972. You were magnificent then, and you're magnificent now." More applause erupted as recognition dawned on some of the older audience members. The younger people looked confused but remained on their feet, clapping enthusiastically. Backstage, Zach, Brittany, and Jason stood in shocked silence, their phones still recording but forgotten in their hands. "Did you know?" Jason finally asked. "How could I know?" Zach replied, his voice small. "She's just the old lady who checks out books at the library." David overheard them and shook his head. "Maybe that's the lesson here. Everyone has a story we don't know about. Everyone has hidden talents and past lives we can't see." The judges unanimously awarded Eleanor the first prize. When handed the large check and trophy, she seemed almost embarrassed by the attention. "I don't need the money," she said into the microphone. "I'd like to donate it to the high school music program. Perhaps it can help another young person discover their voice." The announcement was met with another standing ovation. In the aftermath of her breathtaking performance, Eleanor Wilson's life transforms in ways she never anticipated. The quiet, unassuming existence she once led in Meadowbrook is replaced by a newfound sense of purpose and recognition. The viral spread of her talent show video brings unexpected fame. Morning shows interview her, record producers offer contracts, and strangers reach out to praise her voice. Yet, despite the whirlwind of attention, Ellaner remains grounded. She refuses to let the spectacle overshadow what truly matters to her: connection and legacy. The most meaningful change occurs within her own community. The high school, inspired by her talent and generosity, she donated her prize money to their music program, invites her to coach the choir. Students who once overlooked her now stop her in the street, eager for advice or a moment of her time. The library where she volunteered for decades proudly displays memorabilia from her opera career, bridging her past and present. For Ellaner, this is more rewarding than any viral fame. It's a chance to pass on her love of music to a new generation. A poignant moment arises when Zach, Brittany, and Jason, the production assistants who'd initially mocked her, visit her home to apologize. Ellaner, with grace and wisdom, doesn't chastise them. Instead, she serves tea amid framed playbills and yellowed photographs of her performing days, offering them a glimpse into the life they'd dismissed. Her kindness disarms them, and Zach's hesitant request for singing lessons becomes a turning point for him and for Ellaner. Teaching him becomes a symbol of redemption, not just for Zach's shallow judgment, but for Ellanor's own rediscovered passion. The story culminates in a winter concert, where Ellaner shares the stage with a community choir spanning generations. Zach, now confident in his voice, stands proudly in the front row. The performance is a testament to how one moment of courage, Ellanor's decision to sing after decades of silence, rippled outward, reviving dreams and dissolving prejudices. The standing ovation she receives this time isn't just for her voice, but for the lives she's touched. The lesson is clear. It's never too late for a second act, and sometimes the most ordinary faces hide the most extraordinary stories.